Greetings, fuckers. And today let's talk about psychosomatic illness. We're going to discuss what it is and is not, how it happens, 6 common reasons that you might be fucking sick again, why it's so hard to pinpoint and prevent, and how to navigate psychosomatic illness without making it all worse via more stress on your system. So, what is psychosomatic, right? Psycho is the mind, somatic is your bodily senses. So, psychosomatic is brain events that are felt in the body. Psychosomatic illness is brain events impacting the body to such an extent that the old meat suit is disordered, which leads to sickness, pain, general malfunction. Psychosomatic illness, as we just discussed, means that your body gets disordered, dysfunctional. So the spiral starts up top in your cognitive and emotional processes, and then eventually those work their way into your bodily system, which throws off your normal functional operations, and everything gets all off kilter, rather wonky. That means psychosomatic illness is real events taking place in your body. It is not, quote, crazy senses, psychosomatic. It's not imaginary or fantasy problems. It is not dramatic pleas for attention. It is not hypochondria. Psychosomatic illness means real mental and emotional imbalances feeding into real biological and physical imbalances and real symptoms of illness and pain and malfunction. So here's the big problem. We tend to define illness as being a bacterial or viral domination and typically think that those originate in the body. Psychosomatic illness, on the other hand, is a system imbalance, as we've said 10 times, and it originates in the head. But plenty of real illnesses have similar causes. There's not really a huge distinction here. We can think of system imbalances such as cancer and diabetes, and things that originate in the head, such as dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, etc. So, obviously, neither of these is criteria to make an illness not real, imaginary. We just need to redefine illness and how we typically think of it. So, in conclusion, psychosomatic illness is a disruption of biological systems that originates in the mental and emotional processes of the individual. The head loses its healthy homeostasis. The brain activities drive the body to do the same. It is a real imbalance with real symptoms. So, imbalance in the brain leads to imbalance in the body. And that can present as so many things: generalized exhaustion, GI ailments, respiratory illnesses, dental disorders, rashes, swelling, bloating, water retention, arthritis, stiffness, reproductive disorders, migraines, headaches, head pressures, immune system weakness or overdrive, aka autoimmune illness, blood pressure and circulation issues, substance intolerances, mystery pains, disembodiment that cannot quit. And I marked a lot of these as being extremely broad categories, meaning GI ailments can look a lot of ways. That can mean IBS, Crohn's, constipation, chronic diarrhea, wasting diseases. Blood pressure and circulation can look like Raynaud's, POTS, high or low blood pressure. These cover a lot of ground, which is what makes it so very difficult for us to take ourselves seriously or to get diagnoses that help us. And another option is that you have all of these problems, potentially all at once, potentially item by item in no particular order, such as exhaustion leads to fog, leads to arthritis, leads to dental diseases, leads to GI disorders, and it goes round and round. So, these random seeming illnesses and disorders, again, can happen item by item or all at one time, which is an overwhelming experience. But once you've had one psychosomatic illness experience, there's a strong chance that you're going to have more. Your body has begun this pattern of being thrown off balance to stay alive, and it'll keep doing it. Once the brain gets stuck in a pattern which throws it out of homeostasis, the biological system is likely to follow suit in the ways that it has learned to do so before. And so it goes round and round. Therefore, we can say, welcome to your new cycle of life. It feels more like a cycle of death. You're sick, you're better. You're sick, you're better. And this is why it's a really good idea to learn your predisposing pattern and early indicators of illness so you don't feel like you are dying all the time. So, in conclusion, psychosomatic illness presents in many ways. Each includes many potential presentations of these potential diseases and disorders. Often, many illnesses appear all at once or one after another. And psychosomatic illness tends to run in loops. After one round, it's likely that you'll experience more repeatedly and possibly with escalation. But it can be managed if you figure out your patterns. So, here's some pointers on how the psychosomatic illness cookie tends to crumble. You go through a period of machinic surviving or treating yourself like a gotta get shit done robot. Meanwhile, there's a lot of shame and overwhelm building in the head. There's repressed needs also taking place because, again, you have too much to do and you might be avoiding some of the shame and overwhelm consciously. This can lead to a lot of bodily disassociation, which can lead to increasing impacts of stress in the body that are not being noticed. The system might start coping and numbing, both mentally and physically, which again leads to system imbalance from the top down and a lot of flailing efforts trying to keep things afloat while the ship is really burning. The system eventually collapses. That ship sinks. And then you might go through what I like to call a hard system reset. Optionally, you can use this hard reset for emotional and spiritual clarity via your suffering. Then we tend to get back to normal life and start all over again. So, the brain-body connection works like this. Stress is translated into the body goes on high alert. Normal operations are disrupted as that energy reserve is used for different means than usual. Resources are diverted to your survival and basic functions, and the degree of imbalance that begins here increases over time. Eventually, the system cannot support itself in this imbalanced state and it collapses. or many of your individual systems within your larger biological system collapse. With autoimmune disorders, it goes like this. We're stressed up top in the brain. The nervous system ramps up your immune system. The immune system fights imaginary enemies. It goes searching for dragons. So the body and neutral substances end up being labeled as those dragons. And then your biology fights them, but it also sets fire to the entire village that you reside in. And we can say with all of the disorders across the board, stress leads to inflammation. Inflammation leads to more inflammation. Once one system is off balance, the rest often follow suit. And inflammation leads to literally every single disease and disorder that we know about. Trust me. So, the very short list of points to watch out for includes stress, your repressed needs, bodily abandonment, self-sabotage, and mental and emotional hygiene habits that aren't so great. In conclusion, psychosomatic illness often comes from self-neglect, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Repressing difficult aspects of the mind and accumulating stress subconsciously will feed into the body. Stress throws bodily systems off balance, and once one system is off balance, the rest will follow. And since they're necessary for normal functioning, you get real fucked. The stress can come from the outside or inside, generally both in a interlocking fashion. And in this way, everything gets very confusing. So let's get into some common scenarios that bring about psychosomatic illness. But first, I need to say, can a mental health disorder itself lead directly to psychosomatic illness, i.e., anxiety leads to sickness? Yep. So, for instance, anxiety itself can lead to GI issues, insomnia, teeth grinding, jaw pain, hypertension, acid reflux, muscle spasms. The point is that symptoms can equal chronic sickness. And as long as we're talking to a PTSD recovery crew, let's also mind that our nervous system can fuck shit up. The parasympathetic response can look like exhaustion, burnout, foggy brain, food cravings, endless sleeping. And the sympathetic response can look like GI paralysis, hypertension, insomnia, loss of appetite, migraine, etc. So check your anxiety and your survival responses in particular, because there are direct connections between symptoms of mental disorders / mental states and systemic malfunctions that present with symptoms of biological illness, which might lead us to ask a lot of questions like, do I have the flu or am I just getting depressed? Is this food poisoning or am I anxious today? We don't know until we find out via learning about our own patterns, unfortunately with self-experience. So here are 6 common psychosomatic illness kickstarters that might restart your sick cycle time and time again. Historical trauma, unprocessed thoughts and feelings, big stress-loaded events, long-lasting stressful periods, relief from severe stress, and subconscious sabotage, as well as dysfunctionally based accidents. So first of all, undealt with historical trauma. Have you been stressed out roughly always? Has your brain been ignoring your fears for many, many years? Do you have disintegrated memories that spark large physio-emotional reactions? In other words, do you have flashbacks and disturbing dreams, things of that nature that are still registering in the body and seem to be unrelated to your larger autobiographical recall? Yeah, you might have unprocessed trauma, and that lives in your subconscious as well as your body. It is stressful even when it is being consciously ignored. So it looks like this. Your brain is living in a different time period. It's attempting to process what happened around difficult events. And meanwhile, you're telling yourself, I can't. I have shit to do. Let me go deal with that. So the trauma issues in your head are actually registering in your body, but not being processed so that they can be integrated and stop creating upset in both your cognitive and physical worlds, while you're too busy probably dealing with the real world. Number 2, thoughts and emotions that do not promote basic survival, so they get ignored and unprocessed. Do you ignore your internal events because ain't nobody has time for this? Do you intend to deal with things later when life calms down, but that never happens? Are you a master compartmentalizer? Well, maybe you're not wallowing in these problems, which is what you fear would happen if you were to actually deal with them, but you are swallowing them whole without properly chewing, and therefore they are rotting in your gut rather than ever being digested. It looks like this. You have a bunch of problems going on up top. You are not allowing yourself to reckon with them. They are feeding back into your body. The brain body connection is not really taking place consciously so you can digest your issues. And so instead, it's all just feeding into the system. Well, once again, I'm guessing you're proclaiming you got other shit to do. It's 9 a.m. and you need to get busy. Number 3, we can have big acute system overloading stress events, big T traumas. Holy shit, does it seem like a bomb went off in your brain and or body? Have you recently been shaken? Potentially literally, you may actually just be shaking from the inside out. Has life been less functional since this big bomb explosion event? One big, overwhelming happening can knock your system off kilter if the threat of life is perceived and a feeling of safe normalcy is not reinstated. Maybe you don't have time to get back to that sense of normalcy before the body fails on you. It looks like this. There is a threshold after which the body cannot handle more stress. So here we have stress versus time. Stress skyrockets very quickly. The body does not have time to adapt. You cross that threshold and the body is knocked out of homeostasis, at which point your motherfucker gets sick. Number 4, we can also have long, low burning, let's just get through it, stress events over long periods of time. Have you been powering through a difficult time period for weeks or months or years? Is there always something you should be doing, and do you struggle to stop moving? Do you also find yourself challenged to notice your experience while this is going on outside of naming your responsibilities? Continual performance and duty take a hit on the brain, body, and nervous system. We adjust to the behavioral patterns, not the biology of constant strain. In other words, we get really used to running ourselves ragged and dealing with stress. But we do not actually ever adapt to where our body can just accept all of that stress without taking a hit. So it looks like this. Over time, the body's capacity for handling stress reaches its limit. So maybe it's a slower burning, slow climbing stress that might even plateau, or you stop recognizing that you're getting increasingly stressed and just kind of settle here. But again, over time, the stress surpasses the body's ability to continue functioning. And you're sick again. Number 5, the counterintuitive relief of stress events can cause you to get sick. Are you finally relaxed after a greatly stressful period of time? But is your brain suddenly a beehive? And is your body suddenly demonstrating weakness, pain, illness, potentially all at once? Well, disassociating and running on survival hormones may have masked your mental misery and propped up your immune system for a long while now. But what goes up must come down. It looks like this. So you have a big stress response, and the body reacts by ramping up your immune system performance. They go through the roof. Then the stress comes back down eventually, and your immune system performance does too. It plummets. Your body is exhausted. And when this happens, hey, guess what? You're finally sick after this long exaggeration of bodily functioning. And number 6, we have 2 separate points, both of which might be a little controversial, but let's discuss them. Subconscious self-sabotage and cognitive dysfunctional accidents can also take place. So first of all, with subconscious self-sabotage, let's be honest, do you just need a fucking break from the daily grind of being alive? Do you require enough demonstrable evidence of being sick in order to ever cut yourself some slack? And do you suffer from chronic self-neglect? Your subconscious might be forcing illness to force you to allow self-care. Or it might be punishing you with, quote, what you deserve through ongoing neglect. So it can look like this in the first example. The world is constantly keeping you busy, and you think consciously, if only there was time for dealing with my problems. But there's not. Unless you're goddamn sick. All of these issues temporarily go away because you can let yourself off the hook to deal with your illness. And that is how your subconscious forces you to finally look at your problems. In our other example, you may punish thyself as thy, quote, should. The world has taught you you're a piece of shit. You deserve nothing. And your brain says, I'm a piece of shit. I deserve nothing. So therefore, you neglect yourself in the way that you've been told you should. And guess what? You sabotage yourself into being fucking sick because that's all that you deserve. Yikes. Number 6, cognitive dysfunctional accidents, as I'm calling them. Has your functionality and mental acuity declined during or after a stressful time? Do you notice yourself making kind of silly mistakes, often in a fog? Are you less physically coordinated and with it in your daily environment? Simple accidents can happen when we're distracted by turmoil and system exhaustion, including that which originates in our brains. Suddenly, your body is sick/damaged, quote, because of your stupidity, which is really overwhelm. So, for instance, you're sick, you're distracted, you're running on fumes, and you cut yourself on a rusty nail. Now you're dealing with tetanus. You are desperate to get some calories in you and maybe ate some questionable food. Now you might have food poisoning. You forgot to drink enough goddamn water, and hey, you're super goddamn dehydrated. So these are not traditional psychosomatic ailments, but it is another connection between cognitive disturbance, exhaustion, imbalance, and potential pain/illness to look out for. It looks like this. The world says, get fucking going. You are not dealing with problems in your brain. You are also probably neglecting yourself in your body. All of this leads to reduced clarity and functionality, which then in turn can lead to accidents and mistakes out in the real world, which feeds back into the body once more. And hey, you're injured and you're fucking sick. So, in conclusion, here are 6 common psychosomatic illness kickstarters that might restart your cyclical illness time and time and time again. So, why is it so hard to pinpoint and prevent psychosomatic illness if these are the things that we need to look out for? A, because these factors often overlap and they lead into one another in a way that's not really optional. We have to do what we have to do, or at least we tell ourselves that we have to do what we have to do. Because B, we didn't learn proper limitations or self care. We don't know how to take care of ourselves properly, or to give ourselves the things that we need, or to notice the things that we need. So we repeat the same illness producing patterns on a loop and say, that's called being alive. And let me add additional point number 7. Surviving right now kind of mandates all of the above. It's called being alive in the lower 90% in the 2020s. For instance, capitalism and the modern world opposing our system wellness. We have no time or space to deal with historical trauma. We have no time, space, or energy for our unprocessed thoughts and feelings that are not about our immediate duties. We have a lot of global and personal problems that are creating big stress events. With inflation and economy right now, yeah, there's a lot of long lasting stress periods for most of us. There might be an occasional false sense of security, which leads to the abrupt relief from severe stress that can still cause us to get sick. And I think most of us are dealing with quite a bit of exhaustion and burnout, which then correlates with that subconscious sabotage and cognitive dysfunctional accidents. We can also say that all of these things lead to an increase in hypervigilance, a decrease in hope, and a decrease in sense of control and life autonomy, all of which will increase bodily disassociation and decrease healthy physical cognitive behaviors, which both lead to illness. So, once more, why is it so hard to pinpoint and prevent psychosomatic illness? All of these things, and most of us are lacking the option to just opt out of them in order to have a less stressful life. Meanwhile, we have CPTSD burning in the background, which is really difficult to pay enough attention to with all this going on. So here's a bonus point. Self-care versus basic self-maintenance. Look, self-maintenance is eating nutritious food that meets your energy needs and your body can digest well. Sleeping enough for you. Hygiene that promotes embodiment. Comforts and body recovery staples, entertainment, and human connection. These are things just to keep your system going. These are basic self-maintenance points. Self-care is comforts beyond the bare minimum of what is required for you to survive, which will additionally help to regulate the nervous system, mood, and or mental space. I like to think of self-care as activities that elicit a feeling of love from the self unto the self. Self-care. So in combating all these potential kickstarters of psychosomatic illness, watch out for overdrive patterns. Have caution with your self-neglect patterns because life mandates it and you deserve nothing. Do not dismiss your thoughts and feelings. They will accumulate and feed into the body. Expect stressful events, stressful periods, and the relief of stress to knock your system around. And expect these things are kind of always right around the corner. And not to catastrophize, but take care of yourself as much as you can during periods when things are calm, because who knows what's coming next and how you'll need to care for yourself. So start practicing when you can. And do not mistake self-maintenance for self-care. Remember, you need both. So let's talk about how to navigate psychosomatic illness without making it worse for yourself. First of all, start learning the early indicators of your illness. Take pressure off of your life as soon as possible when those indicators are spotted, and attend to your mental, emotional, as well as physical well-being immediately. Remember, it's probably not enough to just treat the sickness itself. There is some kind of cognitive issue going on, which also needs to be addressed. Here are some hints for those early indicators that seem common in the trauma population. There's a foggy/pressurized feeling that you might get in your brain. There might be some exhaustion and lethargy. Your limbs might be difficult to even pick up. There might be a particular pain point or other sensation that takes place in a specific area of your body, which could include things like tingling and numbness. You might have a loss of appetite or be overeating or having weird cravings, signs that your system is off balance. You might find yourself in overdrive mode or unable to stop moving, which means you're running your system into the ground. Similar, you may notice your heart beats like the beat of a drum, like Kesha would say. If when you stop moving, your heart is still pounding as though you just ran a marathon, it's a good sign that things need to be attended to. And at certain times of the year, you may be more likely to have psychosomatic illnesses. That can be because there's added pressure during those times, or because you are being mentally and emotionally triggered with seasonal stimulations during those times. Learn your patterns and start to stunt the illness by treating it as much as you can before it takes over your life. Now, the big issue is that being stressed about your body's response to stress is going to keep you stressed, which is going to make you sicker and sicker. We cannot always remove the stress from life, but we can remove the stress from our brutal self-assessments as we deal with life. So, believe yourself. Remember that bacterial and viral overload is not the only definition of illness. If you feel sick, you are sick. You require attention. Your body is telling you something. You do not need a doctor's note. There is no qualifying criteria for being sick enough for it to matter. And no one in your life needs to validate your illness in order for you to take it seriously and give yourself the care that you need. I also recommend that you put less attention into researching it. Look, you're going to find 10,000 possible ailments, and that will come with 10 times the stress as you try to figure out which one it could possibly be. Again, if you're having many symptoms all at once or item by item, this will drive you insane. And also, there are so many stress-based, inflammation-based, and immune system-based disorders. Naming the particular one generally isn't really possible and won't really help you. So, there's my advice on that one. Stop looking for an answer or a fix. It's a systemic problem. It's affecting all of you. So it requires a holistic healing approach. Save your money and your attention and use them on lifestyle changes and self-care. Also, learn to self-advocate. You're going to need to lead your doctor appointments if you are bothering with Western medicine. I really don't. You might want to change practitioners as necessary to find one who will actually listen to you. You're going to need to get comfy with your work allowances and fight for your time off. Talk to HR, talk to the organization higher ups, figure out legally what your options are, and check out social programs that might help you as well to try to take as much stress off your plate and give yourself allowances for self-care as much as you can. You will have to fight for yourself. But meanwhile, stop seeing your body as the enemy. It is not. That poor critter is trying its best to keep you alive and to keep going. But you/the world keep throwing wrenches at it. Instead, learn your body's lessons. What is it trying to tell you through your ailments? You are not thriving because something is out of balance in your daily life. So here's a perspective flip for you, one of many. Your body's not the problem. Your biology has flourished for millennia. That is why we still exist. Our society and lifestyles are the problem. Our cages, the frameworks around our lives, do not match our physiology. They do not allow our biology to thrive. It's not the other way around. Your body is not an inconvenience. Your meat does not stand in the way of more important shit that you need to do. Taking care of your meat is the most important shit you need to do. Your life and your experience are not some annoying obstacles between you and the performances that you need to uphold in order to meet some expectations in the outside world. And if the demands of your life put you at odds with your own existence, with your own body and biology, is it time to recalibrate those demands on your life? because you can replace jobs, homes, spending habits, relationships, beliefs about success, etc., etc., etc. You cannot replace your body or your brain or your life. When your body hits a hard stop and everything grinds to a halt, what's it trying to tell you? Lean into exploring the depths of your internal landscape rather than shaming yourself into suffering through harmful external landscapes, because it's a fucking Tuesday. So, for instance, investigate how necessary your stressed out lifestyle really is, comparing the fears in your head versus critically checking them against reality. So, what does it mean about me to have this highly demanding job? Answer: that you've been successfully trained to believe a job equals your worth. Meanwhile, you're sacrificing your capacity to be a positive force for you or anyone you love. Here's another one. What does it mean about me to live in this expensive area? That you've been successfully trained to believe a location equals your happiness and your intrigue as an individual. Again, meanwhile, you're sacrificing your capacity to be a positive force for you or anyone you love. One more. What does it mean about me to sustain this shit-fucked relationship that stresses me out? That you've been successfully trained to believe a particular relationship equals validation of your own worth as a human. Meanwhile, you guessed it, sacrificing your capacity to be a positive force for you or anyone you love. So, what is more important than your experience whilst being alive? I suggest you ask yourself. Nothing. If you're going to ignore your own being to get through this mess indefinitely, or to uphold some expectations of how to be a correct human being, you're already the walking dead. You have given up your right to live if you are not paying attention to your own brain and body while you do it. Be kind to yourself when you are sick. Do not force functionality. Ask what you're supposed to learn from the experience and listen to your subconscious and your meat. Get in touch with your internal events while removed from external reality and process what you've been carrying around. Accept what your body can and cannot handle, as well as what it really does and does not need. Explore your attachments to prior beliefs about what a correct life or human looks like. Change your life according to your real limitations. Your real limitations, not those of the people around you or the rest of society. Do not ignore your limitations in order to live a miserable, disassociated, inauthentic life based on someone else's ideals. Stop seeing your body as the enemy. Start seeing our modern world as incompatible with biological, emotional, and cognitive wellness. In other words, our modern world is incompatible with being a human well. In other words, our modern world is incompatible with being a well human. Start noticing your patterns, fucker. Honoring your body's wisdom, and start behaving in a way that can save your life. This is not the way. This is how we can deal with psychosomatic illness and still lead successful, fulfilling, satisfying, meaningful lives. And that's what a motherfucker has learned through the past 12 years of psychosomatic illness on repeat versus getting a biomedical degree, working class survival, complex trauma recovery, a master's in science degree, running a small business, capitalism defection. And you know what? I still fucking struggle with it every single day. But I'm figuring it out and I don't let it stop me. It's not an easy ride, but we can do this. You can do this. Take care of yourself. And cheers, fuckers. Talk to you soon.